Spotify buys into analytics, the latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net. Spotify has acquired Podsights and Chartable. Spotify describes Podsights as a leading podcast advertising measurement service and Chartable as an analytics platform that enables publishers to grow their podcast audiences through promotional attribution and audience insight tools. No terms were given. Spotify's published an interview with Sean Creeley from Podsights, and Creeley has also written to his customers. We've got a copy of that email in our show notes and our newsletter today. Podsights, which has 40 staff, will continue to operate as before. An FAQ sent to customers is explicit that Podsights will not share individual publisher data with Spotify's publishing business. Chartable's audience insights and cutting-edge promotional tools, smart links and smart promos, will be rolled into Megaphone, and as we understand it, will not be available to non-Megaphone customers in future. Chartable has 11 staff and has published a blog post. We spoke to Brian Barletta from the Sounds Profitable newsletter. He tells us that Spotify has bought great technology and acquired an all-star technical and sales talent. But these companies are no longer third-party solutions due to Spotify's role as a publisher, hosting platform and ad seller. He says, just like with AdsWiz's Attribution Pixel and the Triton Ranker, these solutions can still add value. But with this acquisition, they now lack the ability to be seen as truly neutral. In other news, Blubrry has released a new podcast statistics interface. The company was the first independent podcast host to be IAB certified in December 2018. Apple has just published a guide to getting promotion for your podcast from Apple Podcasts. It includes tips to get promoted by the platform, timing advice, and more. The Ambies announced their nominees. There are 175 shows up for awards. The ceremony is on March the 22nd in Los Angeles in California and will stream online. Break It, a Swedish news website, has published an article which alleges that downloads are being bought on Spotify. The journalists tried to buy 130,000 listens to their podcast, but both Spotify and Acast spotted the bots and invalidated the traffic. However, they did succeed in paying for 50,000 plays from 8,000 listeners for a fake music track. Acast has signed Ash London's podcast. Ash London is a former radio personality with Southern Cross Stereo, but has joined listeners' rival for her second season. iHeartRadio in the US has signed with Sounder to offer advertisers brand safety tools. The company is a seed investor in Sounder's latest Series A funding round. And Triton Digital released the New Zealand podcast ranker for January. Audio Boom's Case File makes it to number one for monthly listeners. And in publishers, NZME's iHeartRadio is number one for podcasts. And thank you to Gumball for becoming our newest silver supporter. Host-read podcast ads connect listeners to brands, and Gumball connects advertisers with podcast hosts to make it happen in a few clicks. You should be like Gumball at podnews.net/support. And thank you to Lindsay Graham for becoming our newest personal supporter. He's the host of History Daily, which has just hit 3 million downloads since its launch on November the 1st. You should be like Lindsay as well at podnews.net/support. And in People News, Tim Batt has been appointed as Acast's Creator Network Development Director for New Zealand. His podcasts include The Worst Idea of All Time. And Angelo Mandato has resigned as CIO of Blubrry Podcasting and Raw Voice. He was the first paid employee. And in podcast news, Phil Newby wants to be able to die. Kill Phil is a new podcast debating assisted dying. And for Phil Newby, diagnosed with motor neurone disease, it's a very personal story, since he wants the right to decide when his life is no longer bearable and end it with dignity. You'll find Kill Phil in your favourite podcast app. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories in full and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.